Every person walking this earth right now is one decision away from their destiny. But most will never make that decision because their mind is too weak to carry the weight of what they were born to become. Your destiny doesn't die because the world is against you. It dies because your mind surrenders before your body even steps into the arena. It dies in the quiet moments when you choose comfort over courage, when you trade your future for the temporary relief of fitting in, when you let fear write the script of your life and doubt direct every scene. The truth that nobody wants to hear is this. Weak minds don't just miss opportunities, they murder destinies in the womb before those destinies ever get a chance to breathe. And you can blame your circumstances, you can blame your history, you can blame every person who hurt you or every door that closed in your face, but at the end of the day, the battlefield where your future was lost wasn't out there in the world. It was in here, in the space between your ears, in the moments when you had to choose between who you are and who people wanted you to be. Mental weakness doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It creeps in slowly, like water finding cracks in stone. It starts with a small compromise. You silence your real opinion because you don't want conflict. You dim your light because someone else feels threatened by your brightness. You abandon your dream because the people around you can't see what you see, and their blindness becomes your prison. You tell yourself it's just one compromise, just one moment of bending, just one time choosing peace over truth. But weak minds are built one surrender at a time. Every time you swallow your authentic voice to please someone who was never going to understand you anyway, you lose a piece of the strength your destiny requires. Every time you look for permission from people who aren't qualified to judge your journey, you hand them pieces of a future that was never theirs to control. The most dangerous thing about mental weakness is how reasonable it sounds. It whispers to you in the voice of wisdom. It tells you to be realistic, to think about what people will say, to consider how your choices will look to others. It disguises itself as humility when it's actually cowardice. It pretends to be caution when it's actually fear wearing a sophisticated mask. Mental weakness will convince you that you're being smart by playing it safe, that you're being mature by not rocking the boat, that you're being responsible by choosing the path everyone else approves of. And while you're congratulating yourself for being so reasonable, so measured, so careful not to upset anyone, your destiny is suffocating in the distance, dying from neglect, because destiny doesn't respond to weak minds. It doesn't negotiate with people who need a committee's approval before they make a move. It doesn't wait for you to feel ready or for the conditions to be perfect or for everyone to finally understand what you're trying to do. You know what mental weakness looks like in real time? It's the person scrolling through social media at 2 a.m, comparing their behind-the-scenes struggle to everyone else's highlight reel, wondering why they're not further along, why they're not successful yet, why nobody sees their value. It's the constant need for validation, checking how many people liked your post, measuring your worth by the attention you receive from people who don't even know your real story. It's the paralysis that sets in when you have to make a decision. And instead of trusting yourself, you poll 10 different people and then feel more confused than when you started because now you have 10 different opinions and zero clarity. It's the exhaustion that comes from living everyone else's expectations, trying to be the person your parents wanted, the employee your boss demands, the friend everyone needs, the partner someone else designed, until you look in the mirror and don't even recognize the person staring back because you spend so much energy being everything to everyone that you forgot to be yourself, to your own destiny. Mental weakness shows up in the way you talk about your dreams. You don't declare them, you apologize for them. You don't own them, you whisper them like they're embarrassing secrets. You don't protect them, you throw them out into crowds of people who were never meant to carry them with you, and then you act surprised when those people crush what they didn't understand. You share your vision with people who are living in fear, and then you wonder why they respond with doubt. You ask for advice from people who never took a risk in their lives, and then you're shocked when they tell you to play it safe. Mental weakness is taking your lion heart to sheep for approval, and then wondering why you feel so lost, so confused, so disconnected from the roar you were born to release into the world. And here's what hurts the most about mental weakness. You know better. Deep down, beneath all the noise, beneath all the opinions, beneath all the fear, there's a part of you that knows exactly what you're supposed to be doing. There's a voice inside you that keeps trying to speak, keeps trying to guide you, keeps trying to pull you toward the life you were actually designed for. But you've trained yourself to ignore it. You've practiced silencing your intuition every time it conflicts with what's comfortable or what's popular or what's safe. You've become so good at betraying yourself that it doesn't even register as betrayal anymore. It just feels normal. It feels like wisdom. It feels like you're being smart by ignoring the very instinct that was placed inside you to lead you home. The tragedy isn't that you don't have what it takes. The tragedy is that you do have what it takes, but your mind is too weak to believe it, too fragile to protect it, too busy seeking approval to actually use it. You have gifts rotting inside you because you're too afraid to present them to a world that might reject them. You have a voice that could change lives, but you keep it silent because you don't want to be judged. You have a vision that could shift everything, but you abandoned it the first time someone important to you said it wouldn't work. And now you're stuck, not because you lack potential, not because you lack talent, not because you lack opportunity, but because your mind is not strong enough to carry the weight of your own destiny. You're living small, not because the world made you small, but because your mind chose small. Every time big required you to stand alone, to be misunderstood, to disappoint people who were never going to walk your path anyway. This is where destinies go to die. Not in dramatic failures, not in tragic accidents, not in moments of obvious defeat. They die in the quiet surrender of weak minds who chose comfort over calling, who chose acceptance over authenticity, who chose the applause of the wrong crowd over the alignment of their own soul. They die every single day in the hearts of people who know they were meant for more, but couldn't find the mental strength to reach for it. People who saw their destiny in the distance but turned back because the journey required them to walk alone for a while. People who heard the call but couldn't answer because answering would mean disappointing everyone who had already decided who they should be. Your destiny was never designed to be carried by a committee. It wasn't built for group approval or crowd validation. It requires something most people will never develop: a mind strong enough to stand alone when everyone else is sitting down, to see clearly when everyone around you is blind, to move forward when the entire world is telling you to stay still. Think about a lion cub. It doesn't learn to hunt surrounded by cheerleaders. It doesn't develop its instinct in the comfort of constant companionship. There comes a moment when it must separate, when it must go into territory that feels unfamiliar and dangerous, when it must trust something inside itself that hasn't been proven yet. That isolation isn't punishment, it's preparation. The strength a lion needs to survive doesn't come from the pride's approval. It comes from the private battles fought when no one is watching, when there's no one to impress, when survival depends entirely on trusting the design built into its bones. You are no different. The mental strength your destiny demands cannot be borrowed from other people's confidence in you. It must be forged in the fire of your own conviction. And here's what nobody tells you about that process. It happens in darkness. Like a seed buried under soil, the most critical growth of your life will happen where no one can see it, where there's no light, no applause, no evidence that anything is even working. The seed doesn't doubt itself in that darkness. It doesn't need proof that it's going to break through. It doesn't require validation from the soil pressing down on it. It simply does what it was designed to do. It pushes. It reaches. It trusts the intelligence coded into its existence. But you've been taught to doubt that intelligence. You've been conditioned to believe that if people can't see your progress, it doesn't count. That if your growth isn't validated by external approval, it isn't real. This is where the manufacturer and design principle becomes critical. You cannot fulfill a purpose you weren't built for, and you cannot ignore the purpose you were built for without destroying yourself in the process. Mental weakness is often just misalignment. It's the exhaustion that comes from trying to fit into someone else's blueprint. It's the confusion that sets in when you're pursuing a destination that looks good but feels wrong. It's the emptiness that haunts you even when you're checking all the boxes everyone said would make you happy. Because here's the thing about good versus right. Good will always feel safer. Good has social approval. Good makes sense to the people around you. Good looks responsible on paper. But good becomes the enemy of right when it keeps you from the life you were actually designed for. You can have a good job that's not the right job. A good relationship that's not the right relationship. A good life that's not your life. Mental strength is the ability to choose right over good, even when right costs you everything that looks good. It's the discipline to keep sharpening your blade in the dark, like a craftsman who understands that the edge capable of cutting through destiny's obstacles isn't formed in public. It's forged in private. In repetitions, no one applauds. In practice sessions, no one attends. In the daily choice to hold your vision when everything visible suggests you should abandon it. The craftsman doesn't need an audience to know his work matters. He doesn't need permission to trust his hands. He understands that mastery isn't built in the moments when everyone is watching. It's built in the 10,000 hours when no one cares, when the work is invisible, when the only validation comes from the quiet satisfaction of knowing you're becoming what you were meant to be. Before I continue, answer one question honestly. Have you been living your life or performing someone else's idea of what your life should be? Have you been building your destiny or decorating someone else's vision of who you should become? If you're still listening, something inside you is waking up. Something that's been asleep under all the noise, under all the expectations, under all the voices, telling you to be reasonable and realistic and responsible according to their definition of those words. What's waking up isn't new. It's ancient. It's the part of you that existed before the world told you who to be, and is done pretending. You were built in silence. You were refined in silence. You will rise in silence. Mental strength doesn't grow in the spotlight. It doesn't develop on stages or in front of cameras or in moments designed for social media. It grows like a forest. The mightiest trees don't apologize for the space they occupy. They don't ask permission to reach toward the sky. They don't shrink because smaller plants feel threatened by their height. They simply grow according to their design. And their roots go deep in the darkness where no one sees, where there's no applause, where the only measurement of progress is the tree's own expansion toward what it was created to become. Your mental strength is developing the same way right now, whether you realize it or not. Every moment you choose your truth over their comfort, roots go deeper. Every time you trust yourself when everyone else doubts you, you grow stronger in places no one can see. Every decision to honor your calling over their expectations, you become more unshakable. But here's what nobody warns you about. The path narrows as you get closer to your true calling. The crowd that cheered for your potential will often disappear when you actually start becoming who you were meant to be. Because your growth threatens their comfort. Your freedom challenges their chains. Your courage exposes their fear. Mental strength will cost you relationships with people who only love the version of you that made them comfortable. It will isolate you from crowds that drain you. It will require you to stand alone in rooms full of people who think you're crazy for choosing the difficult right over the easy wrong. And this is where weak minds turn back. This is where most people abandon their destiny. Not because the path is impossible, but because the loneliness feels unbearable. Let me tell you about someone who learned this the hard way. She spent 15 years building a career that looked perfect on paper. Everyone was proud of her. Her parents bragged about her success. Her friends envied her stability. She had the title, the salary, the respect. But every morning she woke up with a weight in her chest that no amount of achievement could lift. She knew deep in a place she tried to ignore that she was living someone else's dream. The life she built was good. It was safe. It was everything she was supposed to want. But it wasn't right. It wasn't hers. For years, she silenced the voice inside that kept whispering about a different path. A path that made no sense to anyone around her. A path that would require her to leave behind everything she'd worked for. To disappoint people who had invested in her current trajectory. To step into uncertainty with no guarantee of success. The mental weakness wasn't in her ability. It was in her inability to trust herself more than she trusted their approval. One night, after another day of pretending everything was fine, she made a decision. Not a comfortable decision, not a popular decision, a necessary decision. She chose her destiny over their expectations, and everything fell apart exactly the way she feared it would. People questioned her judgment. Friends distanced themselves. Family members expressed concern that sounded a lot like disappointment. She lost the security she'd spent years building. She walked away from the life everyone else wanted for her and stepped into a future she could only feel but not yet see. The first year was brutal. No external validation, no proof she'd made the right choice. Just her, alone with her conviction, learning to trust the design inside her more than the opinions outside her. But something shifted. Opportunities that were invisible before suddenly became clear. Not because the world changed, but because she changed. Because her mind was finally strong enough to recognize what was always there, waiting for someone brave enough to reach for it. Doors that seemed locked didn't just open, they swung wide, almost like they'd been waiting for her to become the person who could walk through them. The right people started appearing. Not the people who wanted her to stay small and safe and manageable, but the people who recognized her fire and wanted to build something with it instead of extinguishing it and the loneliness she feared. It transformed. It stopped feeling like isolation and started feeling like alignment, because she wasn't alone. She was just finally surrounded by silence loud enough to hear her own truth, space wide enough to honor her own calling, freedom vast enough to become who she was always meant to be. This is what mental strength produces. Not comfort, not approval, not the easy path everyone validates. It produces alignment. It produces the kind of clarity that can only come when you stop performing for audiences that were never meant to judge your journey. It produces the strength to hold your vision when everything visible suggests you should quit. Think about pottery under pressure. The clay that becomes a vessel capable of holding weight, capable of serving purpose, capable of lasting beyond the moment of its creation. That clay goes through fire. The heat that feels like destruction is actually formation. The pressure that feels unbearable is actually the shaping force. Weak clay cracks under that kind of intensity. But clay that's been properly prepared, that's been worked by hands that know what they're doing, that's been designed to withstand the process. It doesn't just survive the fire. It's transformed by it. It becomes something stronger, more useful, more beautiful than it could have ever been in its original soft form. Your mental strength is being forged the same way. Every pressure point you're experiencing right now isn't trying to break you. It's trying to shape you. Every moment of isolation isn't abandonment. It's preparation. Every instance where you had to stand alone isn't evidence that you're wrong. It's proof that you're strong enough to carry what's coming. But you have to stop interpreting the fire as punishment. You have to start recognizing it as formation. You stand at a crossroads right now, in this exact moment. And the choice you make here will echo through every day you have left on this earth. This isn't motivational theory. This isn't inspirational fluff designed to make you feel good for 10 minutes before you go back to living the same weak patterns. This is a reckoning. Your destiny is on one side, demanding a mind strong enough to carry it. Your comfort is on the other side, promising you can stay exactly who you've been, promising you don't have to change, promising you can keep seeking approval from people who will never understand what burns inside you. You cannot have both. You cannot build mental strength while clinging to the validation of weak minds. You cannot step into your destiny while holding onto the hand of everyone who wants you to stay exactly where you are. The question is not whether you're capable. You are. The question is whether your mind is strong enough to believe it when nobody else does. Whether you can hold your vision when the entire world is telling you to be realistic. Whether you can trust the design inside you more than the doubt outside you. Because here's what happens when you finally decide to develop a strong mind. When you finally choose to stop performing and start becoming. Everything shifts. Not because the universe suddenly decides to favor you, but because you finally become the person who can recognize what was always available. Opportunities that were invisible when you were weak suddenly become obvious when you're strong. Doors that seemed locked when you were seeking permission suddenly swing open when you start walking in authority. People who ignored you when you were desperate for their approval suddenly show up when you stop needing it. This is not magic. This is alignment. When your mind becomes strong enough to carry your destiny, your entire frequency changes. You stop attracting what you want and start attracting what matches who you're becoming. You stop chasing validation and start commanding respect. Not because you demanded it, but because you embody it. Not because you forced it, but because you earned it through the 10,000 hours nobody saw, through the private battles nobody applauded, through the daily decision to keep building, even when there was zero evidence it was working. Mental strength has a gravitational pull. It draws toward you the people, the opportunities, the resources that weak minds spend their entire lives chasing but never catching because they're chasing from a place of lack instead of operating from a place of power. But let me be clear about what this will cost you. Mental strength will make you unpopular with weak people. They will call you arrogant when you're just confident. They will call you selfish when you're just bouncing. They will call you cold when you're just clear about your boundaries. They will accuse you of changing, and they'll be right. You did change. You stopped shrinking to make them comfortable. You stopped dimming your light so they wouldn't feel threatened. You stopped apologizing for the space you occupy in this world. And that transformation will disturb everyone who benefited from your weakness, everyone who felt big because you played small, everyone who felt secure because you were controllable. Mental strength will isolate you from crowds that drain you, and you need to make peace with that right now. The moment you decide to honor your calling over their expectations, you're going to lose people. Friends who only knew how to relate to your struggle will disappear when you start winning. Family members who got used to you being the one they could control will push back when you start making decisions they don't understand. Colleagues who felt safe with you at their level will subtly sabotage you when you start rising above it. This isn't about them being bad people. It's about misalignment. Their comfort required your complacency, and your growth threatens the equilibrium they built around your limitations. You will have to say no to good things so you can say yes to the right things, not good versus bad, good versus right. That relationship that's comfortable but not challenging you to grow. That job that pays well but slowly kills your soul. That friendship that feels familiar but keeps you stuck in old patterns. That opportunity that looks impressive but pulls you away from your actual path. Mental strength is the ability to walk away from good when it's standing in the way of right, even when everyone around you thinks you're insane for leaving something that works. But working and fulfilling are not the same thing. Functional and aligned are not the same thing. Acceptable and destined are not the same thing. Here's what nobody tells you about destiny. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It doesn't send unlimited invitations. There are windows of time when certain opportunities are available, when certain doors are open, when certain people are accessible, when certain movements are possible. And if your mind is too weak to recognize those moments, if you're too busy seeking approval to act on what you see, if you're too paralyzed by fear to move when movement is required, those windows close. Not forever necessarily, but that specific configuration of possibility, that exact alignment of circumstances, that particular version of what could have been, it passes. And you're left with the haunting question that weak minds carry to their graves. What if I had been strong enough to say yes when destiny called? Mental weakness is the only thing that can cause you to miss the appointment your entire life was designed around. Not lack of talent, not lack of opportunity, not bad timing or wrong circumstances or unfair advantages other people had. Mental weakness. The inability to trust yourself when trust is all you have. The inability to stand alone when standing alone is required. The inability to disappoint people who are never going to walk your path anyway. Every person who looks back on their life with deep regret, wishing they had taken the risk, wishing they had trusted their gut, wishing they had chosen their dream over everyone else's opinion, every single one of them had the same problem. Not lack of ability, lack of mental strength at the moment when strength was the only currency that mattered. But here's the truth that can change everything if you let it. That strength is available to you right now. Not someday when you feel more prepared. Not eventually when circumstances improve. Not later when you have more support. Right now, in this moment, mental strength isn't something you find. It's something you choose. It's a decision you make every single day to trust your design more than their doubt. To honor your calling more than their comfort. To build your destiny even when nobody's watching, even when nobody believes, even when you have to stand completely alone in your conviction because everyone else is sitting in their fear. You already have everything you need. The voice inside you that's been trying to guide you toward your real life is not confused. You are. It's not lost. You are. It's been speaking clearly this entire time. But you've been drowning it out with everyone else's opinions, everyone else's fears, everyone else's ideas about who you should be and what you should do and how you should live. Mental strength is learning to turn down the volume on all of that external noise so you can finally hear the internal truth that's been waiting for you to pay attention. It's been waiting for you to value it more than you value being liked. It's been waiting for you to protect it more than you protect your reputation. It's been waiting for you to act on it more than you act on everyone else's advice. The person you're becoming on the other side of this decision, the version of you with a mind strong enough to carry your destiny, that person already exists, not as potential, as reality. They're waiting for you to stop hesitating, stop apologizing, stop explaining yourself to people who were never meant to understand. They're waiting for you to step into the identity you've been circling around for years, the one you talk about when you're alone, the one you dream about when you're tired of performing, the one that feels too big and too scary and too impossible when you're measuring it against your current reality. But destiny doesn't grow from your current reality. It grows from your willingness to become someone your current reality doesn't recognize yet. This is your moment, not tomorrow, not when you have more clarity, not when you feel more ready. Now, while something inside you is still awake enough to hear this, while the fire inside you is still burning strong enough to respond, while you still have time to make the choice that will change everything. Because destiny doesn't wait forever. It moves. It flows. It finds the people with minds strong enough to carry it, and it leaves behind the people who were too afraid to reach for it. You can be the person who reached. You can be the person who decided that their calling matters more than their comfort. You can be the person who built mental strength one decision at a time, one no to the wrong thing, one yes to the right thing, one moment of standing alone when everyone else was sitting down. Your destiny isn't missing. It's not lost. It's not gone. It's right there, waiting for the version of you with a mind strong enough to hold it. And that version isn't years away. It's one decision away. The decision to stop living weak. The decision to stop thinking small. The decision to stop performing for people who will never be satisfied anyway. The decision to trust the design inside you that's been trying to lead you home this entire time. Make that decision. Make it now. Make it completely. Make it irreversibly. And watch how fast everything you've been chasing starts chasing you instead. If this message spoke to your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. Someone who's been living small, playing safe, seeking approval from people who don't even know their real story. And if you want more messages that grow your soul, instead of just entertaining your mind, subscribe, because your journey has just begun. The fact that you listened this far means something inside you refused to stay asleep. That awakening is where destiny finally gets the strong mind it's been waiting for. Now go become who you were created to be. The world doesn't need another person playing it safe. It needs you, strong, clear, unshakable, walking in the fullness of the destiny that's had your name on it since before you took your first breath. The choice has already been made, whether you realize it or not. The moment you decided to listen to this message all the way through, the moment something inside you recognized truth instead of running from it, the moment you felt that stirring in your chest that said, this is for me, you already chose. Now the only question is whether you'll honor that choice with action or betray it with hesitation. Mental strength isn't built in the big dramatic moments. It's built right here, in the space between hearing truth and living it. Most people hear and do nothing. They feel inspired for an hour and then return to the same patterns that have been slowly killing their destiny for years. They nod along, they agree with everything, and then they go right back to seeking approval from people who can't see what they see, right back to playing small so others feel comfortable, right back to the mental weakness that's been destroying them. One compromise at a time, but you're not most people. If you were, you would have stopped listening 10 minutes ago. Something in you is different. Something in you is tired of performing. Something in you is ready to stop asking permission and start taking ownership. That something is your destiny knocking, and it's not going to knock forever. This is not a motivational high that fades when the next distraction comes along. This is a line in the sand. On one side is everything you've been, every weak pattern, every moment of seeking validation, every choice to play it safe. On the other side is everything you're becoming, the version of you with a mind strong enough to carry what you were born to carry. You cannot stand on that line forever. You cannot live in both worlds. You have to choose. And when you choose mental strength, when you choose your destiny over their expectations, understand that the shift won't always feel good at first. You're going to lose people who can't go where you're going. You're going to face criticism from people who mistake your clarity for arrogance. You're going to stand alone in rooms full of voices telling you to turn back. But in those moments, remember this, every person who ever did anything significant, whoever built anything meaningful, whoever stepped into the fullness of who they were created to be, they all faced this same moment. The moment where mental weakness whispered, go back, it's safer there, and mental strength declared, go forward, it's truer there. The ones who changed the world, who lived without regret, who died knowing they honored their calling, they chose forward. They chose truth over comfort. They chose destiny over approval. Your mind is the only battlefield that matters. Win there, and you win everywhere. Lose there, and nothing else you gain will ever feel like enough. Everything you've been searching for outside yourself, every validation you've been chasing from other people, every proof you've been waiting for that you're on the right path. It all starts with the decision to develop a mind that cannot be shaken, cannot be bought, cannot be controlled by anyone's opinion of who you should be. Build that mind. Protect that mind. Feed that mind with truth instead of lies, with conviction instead of doubt, with vision instead of fear. Because that mind is the only thing standing between you and the destiny that's been calling your name since before you understood what destiny even meant. This isn't the end of the message. This is the beginning of your response to it. What you do in the next 24 hours will reveal whether you heard this or whether you just listened. Don't let this be another moment you look back on with regret, wishing you had been brave enough to act when action was still possible. Be brave enough now. Choose mental strength now. Step into your destiny now. Because the world is waiting for the person you become when you finally stop living weak and start living true.